There's one. Man, that fish was right against the bank. I didn't get a crank of the handle. He hit that spinnerbait. I like that big old blade. Didn't you, little guy? Where is your mama? Threw it right up in there, and bang, he got all over it, just like that one. Yes, sirree. They're not big, but they sure are willing. Neat deal. Yeah, it's ideal spinnerbait with the wind blowing in on the bank. There was another one just rolled on it. I bet I catch him on the next cast. I bet he'll hit it. He was right against the bank. Spinnerbaits are, to me, it's one of the funnest lures there is to fish because there are so many things you can do with it, and it's endless, the different retrieve patterns you can use and the different water situations. We fish it in 20 foot of water, slow rolling it. We slow roll it down into the grass and then bust it loose, let it flutter back down and make contact, say, with hydrilla growing off the bottom and tear it loose again. And, you know, just endless things. But that's what you got to do. Let your mind take over. I think that's the neatest thing about bass fishing is it's like a giant puzzle. And who can put the most pieces of that puzzle together is the person that ends up catching the most fish.
The Bass Class with Denny Brauer is in session, and it's being brought to you by Evinrude Outboards, powered by fixed fuel injection, and by Daiwa Extreme Performance Tackle.
Whenever you're fishing spinnerbaits, especially quickly across the top of the water, we've all had bass follow our bait up and stop. What do you do to ensure more hookups that way?
If he didn't want it, there's something not right about that bait. Maybe he didn't like the color, maybe he didn't like the size, maybe he didn't like the pressure the blades were putting out. If you're having that happen repeatedly, I would start experimenting. Bass are very proficient feeders, and if you have them missing your lure or following your lure, something's not right. On that particular fish that followed you to the boat, the first thing I'd do, he's going to turn when he sees the boat and go back. I'd pick up a different lure, like a floating worm or a topwater bait or maybe a jig, and pitch back into that same area, and you might have a chance of catching him. Obviously, he didn't like that spinnerbait, or he'd have got it. We see that happen a lot with topwater lures, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But definitely, if you're having it happen a lot, the best deal is to downsize, because more than likely, if you're seeing it, it's fairly clear water. And it seems like if you downsize, you're going to get more of those fish to take the bait. And maybe speed your retrieve up. Natural reaction, if they're following your lure that an angler has, boy, I need to slow it down more. And that could be the wrong thing. Once in a while, they're getting too good a look at it, and they're able to scrutinize that bait. You throw it out there and burn it just as fast as you can, you get that reflex strike, and he's got it before he knows what he's got, so to speak. Retrieve is very, very important as spinnerbait, and there's 100 ways to retrieve, but if one's not working, certainly don't do it all day long. And that is the rut we get into. We throw that spinnerbait out there, and we're comfortable doing this. We throw it back, and we do this. And pretty soon, well, Joe, it's about time to go in. They're not hitting very good today. Well, they might have been killing it if you were doing that, or if you were fluttering it down, doing different things with it. Fish that spinnerbait. Don't throw it out and reel it in. Fish it. In other words, as you're bringing it by that stump, maybe make it bump that stump. Guide it with your rod tip. And then as soon as it bumps, let it flutter. Do different things with it, because different things in the water, erratic things, are what trigger strikes. If you're bringing it along on that steady retrieve, just stop your reel for a split second and start it again. If he's following it like that fish that followed you to the boat, when you made it do something different, he overran that bait. Now he's either got to turn or eat it. And you may have made him eat it just because suddenly you stopped the retrieve on him and it fluttered in his face, and then blades gave off a burst of light or clanged together, or a lot of things can happen. But I think the biggest mistake anglers make is because a spinnerbait is so simple to fish, they just throw it out and reel it in. And that's, you know, some days that works fine. We'll kill them doing that. But there's a lot of days you don't get any bites doing that. But yet if you figure out that certain retrieve and what to do with that lure, how to manipulate it and bring it by the end of that log, and then when you get to the end, kill it, that may be all it took to generate those strikes. There we go. He was on the backside of that tree. Come out of there, fish. Yeah. You're not that big, but boy, you have some leverage. Come to me. Oh, yeah. I threw about 5 foot by this here little old cypress tree in the water, which is what I think you normally need to do on these targets, to throw by them, so if you crash a big spinnerbait in on them, you're probably going to scare them. So I always try to throw by and work it up to the bush and then just kind of let it flutter a little bit. I threw by it, and I didn't even hardly get the reel engaged, and that fish ran out of the bush on the backside, hit it, and went around the bush, and he made a good account of himself for no bigger than he was. But that spinnerbait, a lot of it's lure placement. You get it into that strike zone, and you're going to catch him. That fish had a bigger strike zone because of the shady side on the back side of the bush and the fact that the wind's blowing in on this bank. That made that fish aggressive. If you got a choice, especially up during the day, of the calm bank or the windy bank, especially in warm water, always go to that windy bank. You're going to get a lot more strikes, especially with baits like spinner baits, because the blades flash more with the ripple on the water, and them fish are a lot more aggressive. They're a lot more willing to leave cover to grab lunch, so to speak, and that one certainly did. Find us another one. You almost took the rod out of my hand. I paused that bait, that fish absolutely drilled it. Yeah. Skinny, skinny fish. No wonder you drilled it. You got to be starving to death. Same deal. Never, ever thought about hitting it while it was moving, but as soon as I killed it, he thought he had an easy meal. There's a fine line between catching fish and not catching fish. Something as simple as just stopping that bait can generate the strike. Try to make these baits do something different. I notice this a lot in the springtime of the year especially. Fish have a tendency in cold water to follow your lures, and they may follow them all the way to the boat. And you may reel that crankbait, throw it out there, reel that crankbait, and you go, oh, man, there's another one follows it. All you had to do to catch those fish is reel it and stop it. Because here's your lure, and here's that fish. And what does a crankbait do when you stop it? It backs up and floats up. And suddenly it's coming right back into that fish's face, and you're making him react. He's got those two choices, turn or eat it. And usually he's going to eat it and then turn because, boom, you put it right in his mouth, so to speak. You made him react by stopping that bait. Cold weather, stop that crankbait a bunch. Reel it, stop it. Reel it, stop it. Ricochet it off a rock, stop it. Ricochet it off a stump, kill it. You know, make it do those different things and try to make it ricochet. Make it do something different, because then you get more of those reflex strikes. Oh, there was a big one right there. Look at the swirl in the water. My goodness. That was a big old fish hit it. Oh, he just went after some bait over there on the other side of that stump. I'm gonna catch me a good one right here. I'll bet I don't have to move the boat 10 yards. Probably this cast. There he is. Yep. That's not the big one, but that's the one that was chasing bait over there. Come on, I need to get you off there so I can catch that big one. Come here. You like water skiing bass? Now, if I give you some slack, will you jump off? No, not that lucky. All right, where's the big boy at? One thing with these shallow running crankbaits, when you start running them through laying down logs and brush like I am, I'm using 20-pound test line. I think that's part of the key, or you're going to lose a lot of fish. They're going to fray you off on some of that heavy cover. You got to be able to get them out of there. It's almost like flipping with a crankbait. It's a very easy bait to fish. You throw it out there, you reel it in. You throw it out there, you reel it in. It's like a spinnerbait. It can be very effective on a throw and reel type presentation. A lot of fish hook theirself as it's moving through the water. They're made in all different sizes, all different shapes, and they're made that way for a reason. We fish all different depths. If we're fishing shallow water, these little square bill baits, 0 to 2, 3 foot, can be ideal. And I like fishing these baits because I love fishing shallow water. So I'll fish these around stumps, around laydowns, along shallow boat docks. Get in a little deeper water, this may go down to about 6 foot. That's when I'll go to that style bait. I want to go deeper, but have a little more vibration, I'll go to that style. Want to go real deep, I'll go to the bigger bait. The bigger the bait, the bigger the bill, usually the deeper it's going to go. Bill angle itself can make a difference. Usually the flatter the bill angle, the deeper the bait's going to go. The sharper the bill angle, the more wobble the crankbait's going to have to it. Most crankbaits, you're going to have a hard time getting over 15 foot. I know there's some of them designed for 20, 25 feet, and on a real long cast with light line, with a perfect retrieve speed, you might be able to obtain that depth, but that's going to be very hard. Most of my crankbaiting takes place in 0 to 12 foot of water. Once I get below 12 foot, I'm personally more comfortable fishing a jig, fishing a Carolina rig, or fishing a Texas rig plastic worm for those fish. So I'm not a real deep water crankbait fisherman, but you take an angler like David Fritz and some of the guys that spend a lot of time with these baits, fine-tuning them, they can be effective in that 16 to 18 foot range, which is incredible. It's a lot of hard work. You got to make long casts, use long rods. A big key to getting crankbaits deep is using lighter line. Most of the anglers that fish deep crankbaits are using 10, 12, once in a while they'll even drop down to 8-pound test line. That smaller diameter line has less water resistance and allows that bait to dive deeper. Also, do not overcrank a crankbait. You get to reeling it too fast, you're going to keep it from going deep. The exact opposite of what you think. You reel it too slow, it won't go deep enough. So there's a happy speed in there where you will find the maximum depth of that crankbait. But usually if you're reeling real fast, that is not going to be the key to getting it to that depth. There's another one. That's a better one right there. That's a good fish. Oh, what a jump. He hammered. Oh, same deal. He hit it when I paused it. Oh, man, fish, settle down. I always like to, oh, and he come off. Where was my net man? Oh, what a fish. That fish went absolutely nuts. Something you don't want him to do. What I tried to do there is let him jump, and don't let him jump. If you're really wanting to land that fish, if you're in a tournament, get that rod down the water. Try to keep those fish from coming up like that, because you could see as soon as he got that head rattling, he took that big old crankbait and he sent it back my direction. But I got my fun out of him. Wow, what a neat bite. Bringing it by these pieces of wood and just stopping it, and they are slamming it. There's one. Oh, he liked that. You're not very big, but you think you are. Go ahead, you can jump and get on. Save me the trouble. Come off of that little isolated tree, didn't you? Hate that little torpedo. You got hooks everywhere. And I don't need one in me. Yeah, that's not a bad little fish. The big walking bait, your spook type bait, it's a great big fish bait. Working it in that slosh, slosh, slosh back and forth motion. Don't be afraid to work it up to a stump and stop it. Work it, stop it. Other times, work it a little faster. It's a good bait. That bait will pull fish from a long distance. Don't you jump. That's how they get away. It was when they jump. Don't you dare jump. I know you're going to. Oh, yes. You big old sow, come here. Oh, don't you get that hook in me. Oh, you're in a bad place. I got you. Whew. There's a fat 5-pounder. He has got that bait absolutely crossways in his mouth. Man, did he hit it. That's what's so much fun about topwater baits, is when they hit them, it scares you half to death. And if you're lucky enough not to jerk it away from them, you are going to catch him. Man, that is a healthy bass. Big old farm pond bass. Ate that walking bait, just walking it by that sloping log, and as soon as I got on top of it, he just come up and busted it. Just let you go. See ya. Whew. That was fun. We'd gone a long time and had probably caught half a dozen little fish in between big fish. And there's days you're only going to get 2 or 3 bites like that. I remember years ago when I used to live in Nebraska, a fish like that happened about once a year. You know, we're down here in Arkansas right now filming, and they grow a lot of big fish, but a fish like that is still a real trophy. And anytime you can catch him on a topwater bait in the middle of the afternoon, you have had some good luck, believe me. Let's see if we can catch another one. Ain't that frog-colored old topwater bait. Oh, there's a giant. Just absolutely killed that buzzbait. Man, what a vicious hit. Don't come off, baby. Don't come off. Whoa. Man, what a hit. Oh. Man, what a fish. What a fish. Oh, I'm going to back my drag off a little bit. What a fish. That fish isn't as big as I thought he was, but he's a good one. Oh, yeah. Come on. Come here. Are you through? You don't even know you're hooked. Oh, wow. What a strike. My goodness. You talk about a vicious buzzbait bite. He got the whole thing. Oh, was he hooked good. Had both the main hook and the trailer hook. That's a good 6-pound plus fish. Good fat fish. I have fished a buzzbait a lot of years, and I don't know whether I've ever had one hit it harder. That fish did not just want to eat that bait. He wanted to kill that bait. What a dandy. We're looking at water temperature, folks, that's above 80. Up into the day, the further up in the day we get, it's probably going to get 85, 86 degrees surface temp. That's very, very warm water, but you can still see, get out of here. You can still see how hard that fish hit that bait. We're about an hour into the morning, and I don't know whether that's an indication how they're going to hit all day. But early in the morning, as I've said before, you need to try these topwater baits, whether you're on a farm pond or whether you're on a big reservoir. You can get quality bites like that during the summertime. Up in the day, you may have to get down on your ledges and your creek channels and your drops, or way out on points, or whatever the place has to offer that you're fishing, and get down there with your worm or your jig. And shoot, I know my home lake, Lake of the Ozarks, during those summer days when it gets real hot, I'll get out there in 30 foot of water and fish right above the thermocline. But in the morning, I can come up in 2-3 foot of water and catch fish just like I caught here in this here farm pond. But that's fantastic. Let's catch another one. When I get in an area where I catch a couple, I certainly like to come back through it, give them another chance. Very seldom do we catch all the fish on one pass or on one lure. I think that's also important, to give these fish a different look, especially where we're doing this show on a farm pond situation. Very few farm ponds are big enough where you can fish all day long without going back over the same water. So when you go back over that water, unless they're really killing a bait, it makes sense to change lures. And that's what we've done. We've probably have caught fish today on, I don't know, walking baits, prop baits, buzz baits. We lost a real nice fish on a jig earlier. We caught that giant fish on a worm. We've caught several here running a shallow lip crankbait by timber. I mean, we've caught them on about everything in the tackle box, and I think that's the key to farm pond fishing, or fishing in general. Once you find an area that's got bass, boy, work them. That's why you buy all them lures. Give the fish an opportunity to eat them, and they don't have that opportunity if them lures are sitting inside that tackle box.